Hi, friends! Welcome back to Brianna's Bookshelf. So, today we are doing the mid year freakout tag. I don't know who the original creator of this tag is, but it has been around here on BookTube for a long time. So, the first question is, how is your reading going so far this year? And I feel like my reading this year is going really, really well. I actually just checked before this video and I'm at exactly 50 books read for the year, which feels pretty crazy because I normally am definitely behind that. I feel like if I continue at this pace, I'm probably going to be close to 100 books read for the year. And I think my goal has usually been like 75 a year. So we're definitely doing really, really good this year. I feel like I've just been loving so many of the books I've been reading. I've read so many five stars this year. Things just seem to be going really, really well. It's a combination of definitely figuring out the genres that I love the most and the types of books that I love the most, but I've also been kind of trying some new things that have been really exciting as well. I've been reading more contemporary romance and sports romance, and I've been really enjoying that as well. Question two is, what's the best book you've read this year? This is, of course, like the hardest question of the whole tag, and I think I've narrowed it down to two options. My first option is Ghost Eaters by Clay McLeod Chapman. I read this really recently and absolutely loved this. This is like addiction and grief horror. I feel like it tackles these subjects so, so well and just was a really gripping and easy to read story. And then I would say my other option is Where I End by Sophie White. I read this at the beginning of the year and also absolutely love this. Of course, both of these books are five stars. And Where I End deals with this young woman who lives on an isolated island, and her mother is extremely disabled and not really in a responsive state. And our main character is just dealing with what it's like to be a caretaker, even from a young age in her life, and how that's kind of her become her only identity. And it has a lot of body horror and is pretty disturbing. And so both of my favorites are a horror, surprise, surprise. Next question is the best sequel I've read in 2026, and I'm gonna have to go with Assassin's Quest by Robin Hobb. This is the final book in the Farseer trilogy, and I just had so, so much fun reading this trilogy. This is high fantasy, very like classic fantasy with really rich world building. We're like really, really deeply connected to the characters in this world, and I just absolutely loved it. In this book, of course, like it says in the title, we are following our characters from the other two books on a quest. And there was so much that happened in this book. And like as we were getting closer and closer to the end, I was thinking like I don't even know how this is gonna wrap up or how we're gonna get through all this stuff because there's so much going on. But it was still able to be wrapped up, and I just absolutely loved this series. It was like felt like a perfect ending. Next question is my favorite reread of 2026. For this one, I'm going to have to go with The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I reread this for the Classic Scares Book Club. We read this for quarter one of the year, and I tabbed the heck out of this. I had so many annotations. This was my second time reading this book, and I felt like I loved it the first time, but I was able to connect with it on such a deeper level this time and really like get in tune with the quotes that I was enjoying, what specific things about it I liked. And if you haven't read this, I would highly, highly recommend it. I'm not a huge classics reader. I would love to read more classics, but I do feel somewhat intimidated by them at times. And this one is extremely easy to read, and it has themes that I think are at times even more important or relevant today than possibly they even were at the time of this being written. So it's extremely modern and timely feeling. Next is the genre I've been loving and reading the most. And for this one, I think I'm going to have to go with horror. I have not actually done like a breakdown of all the genres of all the books I've read this year. Unfortunately, I'm not really a stats girly. I wish I was, but I never really keep track of that kind of stuff. Maybe I will check into it for the end of the year. We will see. But at this point, I haven't done a deep dive, but just like glancing through my read books on Goodreads, I think that horror is probably my number one most read this year. And then, of course, it's going to be followed by fantasy. But it seems to me like so far this year, I'm leaning slightly more horror based on the books I've read. That's what I think. Next is a new release that you want to read but haven't read yet. And I'm going with Half City by Kate Golden. This is a start of a new fantasy romance series, and I feel like I have just seen absolutely everyone who reads this becoming enamored by it and absolutely loving it. A lot of my friends here on YouTube have liked it. Rochelle from Good Morning Dreamer, she's recently read this book and recommended it. And the premise just sounds so up my alley. I really need to get to this. But from what I know, we are following our main character who is basically like a demon hunter. And I think she goes to some sort of magical school. Maybe it's a school for demon hunters. I honestly don't even remember. But I feel like people have made comparisons between this book and the show Supernatural, which I was never like a diehard fan of, but I did watch a few seasons of that and do like that show. And I am intrigued by anything that's compared to that. Next is most anticipated release for the rest of the year. Of course, I'm going to have to go with Deadbeat by Leigh Bardugo. This has been my number one release of all of 2026 that I have just been like counting down for. I cannot wait to get my hands on that book. I really need to do a Ninth House reread. I just absolutely loved the first two books so much. Some of my favorite reads of all time, and I have yet to reread them. So, this is going to be a really exciting opportunity for me to reread and hopefully annotate before the new book comes out. I just can't wait. And then, I guess, like as a runner up, maybe the next ACOTAR book, because I'm just so curious as to what's going to happen, but I'm definitely like not quite as excited about that one as I am about Deadbeat. Next is your biggest disappointment. I'm going to have to go with Tempest of Wrath and Vengeance by Melissa K. Rorick. This is the third book in the Legacy series, and unfortunately, I just did really not get along with this book at all. I had been enjoying this series quite a lot up to that point, and it is a dark fantasy romance series. I had been enjoying the characters, enjoying the relationships, and the world building, but unfortunately, with book three, the characters just started to annoy the hell out of me, and I like literally could not stand to read it. Specifically, the female main character, Tessa, she was driving me up the wall, and then all of the characters felt like they were like literally only driven by their own hormones and like horniness in a way that I just could not stand. When there was like so much other stuff going on in the world, it felt like none of that even mattered. I don't know. I was just really fed up with it, to be honest, which is disappointing. However, I would definitely give Melissa K. Rourke another chance because I loved the beginning of that series, and I've also heard good things about her Lady of Darkness series, so I'm interested in potentially trying that one and giving her another chance. Next up is your biggest surprise, and this one's kind of wild and out of nowhere. Slightly embarrassing, maybe not. I don't know. But my biggest surprise, in a good way, of this year so far, I think, has to be The Dare by Harley LaRue. And this might just be a bias because I just read this a few days ago, but I did not expect to like this novella as much as I did. I had heard about this series on TikTok like for years. I feel like it's a very OG like book talk book. And from how everyone described it or what I'd seen about it before, I really did not think I would like it because I'm not one to read like I guess romance books that are heavier on the smut than the plot. I need the plot to be the most pertinent aspect and then the smut can follow. But this is definitely like more leaning towards erotica, but I just ate it up. Like my Goodreads review was like, how does this book have crack in it? It was ridiculously addicting. And in case you don't know anything about this, basically, this is a prequel novella to a duet. So it's the Losers duet, and then the prequel is The Dare. I've not read the duet yet. I definitely intend to now. I just didn't expect to love this much. We're basically following this girl who was like the mean girl in high school, and now it is college when this novella is taking place. And she basically like gets dared to be the personal slave of this guy who she bullied in high school at this party. So just it's just like silly, goofy, a good time. But I was shocked by how fast I read that and how addicted I was. So very different from my normal reads, but I was surprised. Like I did not see that coming for sure. Next up is favorite new author, and I'm going to be going with Emily Austen. I read Everyone in This Room Will Someday Be Dead very recently by this author, and I absolutely loved this and gave it 5 stars. This is the only book I read by this author, so this is like not the strongest, I guess, appeal for this being a new favorite author, but I do really think that I jive with her writing style a lot and am super interested in her other books. Like, even before I read this one, every time I've seen her come out with a release, it's like I read it, the synopsis, and immediately add it to TBR. Like, I just feel like her books really, really are going to jive well with me. And now that I have proven that right by reading this one, I cannot wait to get to the rest of her books and try those as well. Next up is newest favorite character, and for this one, I'm going to go with a guy and a girl character, and they are both from the same book. And that is going to be Miller Montgomery and Kai Rhodes from Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is the third book in the Windy City series, and I absolutely fell in love with this couple, and both of them individually. I think they're just freaking adorable, and I can't wait to continue this series and see them together because it's interconnected standalone, so you do get to see the other couples as like friends in the backgrounds of the other books, which is so fun. But Miller, she is the daughter of the baseball team's head coach. She's also a professional chef who has won a James Beard Award. She lives out of her camper. She's extremely independent and like such a free spirit, and I loved that about her. And then, very much on the opposite side of the spectrum, Kai Rhodes, he plays for her dad's baseball team, and he is a single father who completely changed his whole life when he found out that he had a child that he didn't know about, who came into his life when the child was like under a year, I believe. And he decided to like do whatever he could to raise his son. And he's like very responsible, family oriented, and just like loves so deeply. And I was obsessed with, again, both of them as individuals, and then seeing the two of them together. That romance just really won my heart. It was so, so sweet, and I just love them. Next is a book that made you cry, and I'm going to go with Inciting Joy by Ross Gay. This is actually a nonfiction. This is a series of essays by this author. I read this at the beginning of the year. Well, actually, I started reading it at the end of last year, and then I'd been like slowly reading the essays over time, and I did really enjoy this, and there were several of the essays that made me tear up or cry. This is kind of just the author speaking on different things that bring joy to his life, and at times it made me happy, at times it made me sad, but I found it so, so inspiring and touching, so I'd highly recommend it if you need like a little inspiration. And by the way, I'm really not a self-help girly. That is not like a self-help book at all. It's very much like personal essays and about like specific topics that are close to the author. He discusses gardening, what it's like to be a Black man, some of the authors and musicians that he loves. It's very much tailored to his specific interests. Then, for a book that made me happy, I am going to go with Caught Up, even though I already used the characters for another answer. But Caught Up just made me so happy. This was like the book that I was like giggling and kicking my feet the most when I read this whole year, and I just can't wait to continue the series. I'm really loving it. Next is the most beautiful book you've bought this year, and I haven't really bought any special editions besides this one, so I'm going to go with this. It is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, the third book in the Emily Wilde series, and I have been collecting the Barnes & Noble exclusive paperbacks in this series because I much prefer these like UK covers than the US ones. And the Barnes & Noble exclusive has like a reworking of the UK cover, and then it also has French flaps and deckled edges, which I know not everyone loves, but I do love those things in paperbacks especially. So I just think this is beautiful. And I actually just bought this because it's my mom's birthday today. Actually, I'm gonna go see her later, and she was wanting to borrow some of my books, and she started reading the Emily Wilde series, and she is obsessed with it now, and she like flew through the first 2 books, and was like, I need the third book, Brianna. Where's the third book? And I didn't have it yet. So I had to go out and buy this just for her, and I'm gonna give this to her later to read, and then of course I'll get it back later to read as well. Next is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? I do not have a strict TBR for myself for the rest of the year at this point, but I do have a couple books in mind that I really want to get to. One is, of course, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by B.E. Schwab. I'm super excited to get that one. Everyone has like nothing but good things to say about it, and I think I'm going to love it. I also have been so sucked into, I don't even know what it's called, but the second book for When the Moon Hatched, I think the second book's called like Falling Dragons or something like that, just came out, and everyone on Instagram seemed to be reading that book. And I definitely got FOMO to the point that I bought When the Moon Hatched. And I'm really excited to read it, but I'm also nervous because I read Sarah A. Parker's other series that she wrote first, and I loved the first book, and then I like kind of hated the other two books and ended up DNFing the series. So I don't know how this is going to go with When the Moon Hatched, but I've heard such good things I couldn't pass it up, honestly. I also have started the Poison Study series by Maria V. Snyder, and I'm trying to vlog my experience with reading the first three books. That is like an OG fantasy romance series that even like inspired Sarah J. Maas. And so I'm hoping to get through at least the first three books on that series. I also have like the following three that's like kind of a spin-off trilogy, I think. So we'll see, but I would really like to get through that. And then the last question is favorite book community members. And there are so many people I could mention. I really do just feel so lucky that starting this experience of posting here on BookTube has brought me so many good friends and people that I interact with and look to for book recommendations. So there's honestly more people than I could even think to list. But some of the people that come to mind are, of course, the other members of the Classic Scares Club. So Angel from Angel Can't Read, Alicia from Alicia Runs and Reads, and Brooklyn, who actually just changed her channel. She has a new channel now called The Brook Report, so you should go follow her there if you don't already. So, of course, I have to mention them. Also, of course, Sarah from Wicked Reading. She always gives me the best recommendations, and she is so supportive towards all of the small creators in this book community. I'm so grateful to her for pushing out the small creators. And then also recently, I've really been enjoying watching Brandy's videos from the Antisocial Library, and she is another one who is just so supportive of all creators in this space, big or small, and I really appreciate being able to interact with her and seeing her opinions on books as well. So those are some of the people that come to mind just off the bat. All right, those are all of the questions for the mid-year freakout tag. It has been so fun to check in and see where I'm at with my reading so far. I've read so many good books, and I'm sure there are so many more good ones to come. Thank you everyone for watching this video. If you have made it to the end and you want to let me know, you can leave me. I'm looking at my phone case right now and it has stars all over it. So yeah, let's go with leave me a star emoji. Thanks so much, everyone, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye.